Haymaker's garden is new, created just in the last 9 months on a clay soil with a fertile 6-inch loam on top. I'm Charles Dowding. I've been growing vegetables for 30 years, always with a no-dig approach, organic growing, and I'm showing you in this short film how I do it and how I've turned this weedy plot of ground, about 1/5 of an acre here, into a wonderful, abundant garden. And the beds here are all made very simply using compost or old manure on top of the weeds and grass that are growing. And here is how. With a no-dig approach, I just love the speedy abundance of growth, and my main output here for selling is salad leaves because they are so much in demand. I'm kneeling beside a bed which I planted in April, and I harvested lettuce all through May, June and July, and already now it's growing a second crop which I planted in August of mustards and endives, and the yields from these beds, just taking off outer leaves like this of this mustard, is phenomenal. Here I'm in the middle of the garden and I'm showing you beds which have no wooden sides, and the beauty of having no wooden sides is you save money and you have less pests, because in the British climate, at least where I am, it's quite damp and slugs is a major problem for us eating leaves. So I find wooden sides give home to slugs, and then the slugs come out and eat the leaves. No wooden sides, less slugs. Only 8 months ago, these beds everywhere here was weeds and grass, a lot of perennial weeds even, and now it's all beautifully clean from the mulching process. So why the no-dig approach? There are just benefits galore. It's less work starting out, you don't have to dig or cultivate the soil, you get more harvests, and you have less weeds. And to find out more about it myself, I've created a dig no dig experiment here where I've made one bed which I've dug and incorporated the manure, and one bed which has not been dug at all, and I've simply put the manure compost on top of undisturbed soil. And I grow exactly the same vegetables and compare the harvests, and you can see both beds are abundant. The no-dig bed is actually slightly more abundant. This year I've harvested 47 kilos from the no-dig bed, 43 kilos from the dug bed for less work. So where do you find enough compost to grow wonderful vegetables? If you have any waste at all at home, organic waste matter, you can turn it into your own compost. Here I'm doing a very simple composting in small heaps. And this is compost that I've made since Christmas, so this is only 8 months old. I've turned it once. You don't have to turn. If you turn, you get lovely compost. And this is good already for growing. Also, you can buy in manure if you can find, or you might get given it even. This is cow manure from a local farm. Cows which have been bedded on straw. It's 18 months old, that's a good age. Anything from a year old or older is good to use. I have a neighbour up the road who actually gives me her horse manure because she has so much of it. For her it's a waste product. For a lot of people it is, so don't be afraid to ask around. People might give it to you. And you can also often buy compost, not too expensive, from tips where they're processing domestic waste into lovely compost. So you have many options of places to go and find compost, and it's the most worthwhile investment you can make in your garden to grow wonderful produce. I've been working with compost all my life, 30 years, and yet there's always more to learn. And to find out more about the inherent qualities of the compost I have available at the moment, I set up a small trial at growing lettuce. And it's the same lettuce plants planted at the same time. The only difference is the compost they are growing in. And the first one here is growing in green waste compost made from local domestic waste. The second one is growing in my own compost, so it's about 8 months old. And the third one is growing in 18-month-old cow manure. And the growth has been remarkably different actually since they were planted in these pots 6 weeks ago. and I've already made 2 harvests from these lettuce, and so far the cow manure is slightly ahead in terms of yield. The homemade compost is catching up though and looking the strongest plant now. The green waste compost is not quite so strong. So maybe you don't have enough compost to smother the grass and weeds with compost on its own. There are other ways of starting a no-dig plot, and using a light excluding mulch is a very good method, such as cardboard, black polythene, or here for example I'm using carpet. It's a piece of old carpet that a friend who was moving house said she didn't want anymore, and so she just gave it to me. A lot of these resources are out there for free, and this is a nice old woolen carpet, which is good because then the chemicals don't leach into the ground. And I've laid it on the grass after putting down some cow manure, and it's now full of worms, and now I'm going to roll it back and plant some spring onions. So here I am where I spread some cow manure straight on the grass, no cardboard or anything else, but I did then cover it with carpet for a couple of months to help kill the grass and weeds, because I've only used about 2 or 3 inches of manure here. Firstly, I'm dibbing holes, so I'm making little holes with my wooden dibber straight into the manure, and then I'm planting. These are spring onions which I sowed in this module tray, and I'm just popping out each plug, popping it in the ground. And these spring onions grow very well in clumps. I'm not thinning them out, I'm planting them as a clump. Something I'm often asked is, can you sow carrots, parsnips into manure compost? And yes, you can. There's a lot of mythology about this, but the simple answer is you can sow carrots, parsnips, anything, any vegetables into compost manure on top of soil. As long as it's about a year-old compost and manure, it's fine. And they love to grow in it. And here are some carrots which I sowed 4 months ago into this bed, into a recently made bed where I just spread manure on top of grass. And I'm going to pull this one out, and you can see that the root has gone down nicely. It's a lovely clean root. You can see how clean they often come out of compost and manure. And you can also grow, for example, potatoes. Here I have some which I harvested in July. We're now September, so they're already 3 months old. They're looking good. These grew in manure. The tubers actually developed in the manure. And what I did was to put the seed potato just tucked into the surface level soil where there was pasture grass still growing, then covered that with, in this case, year-old cow manure. And I also put a sheet of polythene, black polythene, on top to help keep the light out. So the tubers, the leaves grew through the polythene, the tubers developed in the manure under the polythene. And to harvesting is so easy with no-dig potatoes. You just pull them out. You don't need a spade or fork or anything because they're quite surface growing, although the roots of the plant have gone into the undug soil below and they can pull the moisture out of that. And likewise, other vegetables, some seeds I sow direct, but a lot of them actually I raise plants to plant out into the compost or manure of the beds I make. Endive plant there, for example. Here's a chervil plant. Other root vegetables, fennel, so that's bulb fennel. I've grown as a plug plant to plant out. And Swiss chard, here's another one. Very pretty plant. And you can see that's already quite a big plant. When you have plants of this size, you're almost halfway there really, so you can do a lot of your growing in a controlled space like a greenhouse, and then you have very easy growing after that. The no-dig approach works really well with polytunnels. Here I'm standing in a polytunnel which has only been here for 8 months. We put the hoops in the ground in January, and then straight away I mulched the grass that it was assembled on top of with compost manure. I used some cardboard too and smothered all the weeds. Very few have grown through. I've been trialling some out that have, but basically the soil is now lovely and clean. And I've had a wonderful crop of tomatoes, all different varieties growing here. The ones in front are really one of my favourites. That's Sun Gold, which is an orange cherry of the most magnificent flavour. I warmly recommend you to it because not only is it a great tomato, it comes early. In Britain at least, where we have these rather short summers, an early start is great for tomatoes, and these sun god were ripening in the middle of June this year from a late April planting. And now I'm wanting to encourage them to ripen as fast as possible. It's late September, there's probably less than a month until the first frost, so they need to ripen fast, the remaining fruit. I've pinched out the tops, and I'm helping that last bit of ripening by leaving the top leaves on, because you want a few leaves to continue photosynthesizing, bring energy and sweetness and flavour into the remaining fruit. And also I've reduced my watering. That's another good tip for helping to encourage that last ripening. That slows the plant down in terms of new growth and makes it switch a bit of its metabolism into ripening the existing fruit. And then when these tomatoes finish, all I'm going to do, very simple approach, is pull them out, put them on the compost heap and plant winter salad, which I'm currently growing in module trays. So this polytunnel will be full of winter salad. And one last point about the tomatoes is that I have not fed them at all. So they are growing in the goodness provided by the original mulch of compost and manure. You do not need to feed tomatoes if you give them a good mulch in the first place, preferably on top. I think the no-dig is really good for that. The goodness is where the roots like to find them, near the surface, and look how they grow. I hope you've enjoyed this taster, this little experience of what I'm doing here, and the wonderful abundance you can have from gardening in this method. And you can find out more on my website, which is www.charlesdowding.co.uk, and I've also written books. 4 books have come out so far about how to create and then maintain and look after and produce wonderful plants to eat in an undug garden.